Precision Automobiles presents Alfa Romeo Speed Machine.
Welcome back to Speed Machine. The Taupo 1000 is regarded as one of the world's premier off-road races, and this year's event attracted teams from both the USA and Australia. The race is run over two 500-kilometre heats, one on Saturday and the second on the Sunday. The fastest man in qualifying was Tony McCall. Our coverage presented by Heller. We're here in Taupo in the forest, ready for the start of the 2007 Asset Finance Taupo 1000. 75 off-road race cars are about to rip around a 56-kilometre course. You get stuck in the middle, there's nothing to do but sit and watch the rest of the field go by. They're about to start. It's a mass start, and here we go. The action of the 2007 Asset Finance Taupo 1000. This race is all about endurance, and when you have 504 kilometres to complete each day, you have to play it smart. Many competitors were out before they even completed the first lap, and so the field was instantly depleted, and they only had 8 more to go for the day. So as 75 nervous off-road race car drivers head into a 2-day journey of unknown disasters or delights, the crews and support teams relax in the pits, anxiously watching the time tick by as they wait to see if their car will appear from the forest to go past them on a new lap. Tony McCall was at his immediate best as he scorched away from the field, his Class 1 Porsche-powered buggy setting the initial pace for the lap scorers. The rest of the Class 1 fleet could do nothing but stare at Tony's tyre marks as they rotated around the 56-kilometre looped track. But this race is true to the old adage of to finish first you must finish. Clem Lammers is the current Taupo 1000 champion, and he fully understands that you need to try and keep some sort of pace on the track, but continuously ensure that you nurse the vehicle as much as you can. The largest buggy in the fleet is Neville Basile's 4.9 litre V6 Jimco, and he, along with Tony McCall and Clem Lammers, had the favourites tag, which meant a relentless battle for positions. However, with this race, the faster you go, the more chances you have of messing things up. So being smooth and steady has big advantages. But when things go wrong and you're so far away from the pits, sometimes you have no option but to carry on driving. While the Class 1 rigs were ripping around the track, the Americans were also pushing as hard as they could in their Class 2 production spec 4-wheel drives from Toyota. The two California-based teams were here not to only battle each other, but the New Zealand terrain as well. The Australians were also represented by David Jameson in the Suzuki, and for such a small wagon, this race would prove to be a real tester. Class 2 is heavily restricted in allowable modification, but it will put 4-cylinder machines directly against the V8s. The second American squad was the Rod Millen Toyota factory-backed team with the expat Kiwi son Ryan Millen behind the wheel. The pedigree of Millen races simply continues on. The Mitsubishi Pajero Evos are becoming increasingly popular, and with their impressive lineage of Dakar racing behind them, they're bound to swell in numbers on the track. By now 4 laps had gone by, and due to the constant punishment handed out by the drivers, the number of competitors that were still rotating around had dropped further. The Class 3 cars are special in the fact that they are restricted on engine modifications to 1600cc, yet it is the most popular class and will often challenge the open-spec Class 1s head-on for pace and overall bragging rights. The battle never ceases in Class 3, and when it comes to an endurance race, sometimes close combat can be quite a hindrance. Often competitors prefer to run alone, and it frequently makes for a smoother drive. But as stated earlier, this is an enduro, and it's often the smallest things that cause the biggest problems. For the Warren Rogers and Kevin Hall team, it was a broken 1/4-inch oil line that pushed them out for the rest of the day.
It's the only wrestling, you're not stopping, yeah?
As the day rolled on, the tempo for many dropped as they were without doubt in nursing mode. The early pace had taken a toll on suspension and driveline mounts, and creeping around was the only option left. The Class 5 rigs are light and nimble and restricted to 1300cc, and this most recent addition to the genre was having some major issues. The particular buggy design is not the normal style for Class 5, and while a good fun unit, it struggled with the toughness of the event. But it's nothing that a bit of R&D won't fix. The normal 1300 Class 5 buggies can often embarrass the Class 1 or Class 3 machines, but like every other vehicle on the track, they can yield to the pressure and break down mid-race. For Darren Rollinson, it was a disaster as he was going so well until his steering system shattered. And do the other cars that pass him by feel his pain? Possibly, but only when the race is finished. For now, it simply means there is just one less vehicle for them to pass. The race carries on regardless of how many fall by the wayside, and for the Class 6 four-wheel drives, there is still over 600 kilometres to go. Only 3 Class 6 vehicles entered the race this year, including Tony White and Mike Graham, who returned in a new Nissan Patrol after the last one was engulfed by fire in the previous event. It's a class that will grow, as you can modify as much as you want, as long as it meets the safety regs of the event and is still certified as road legal, plus has a current warrant and registration. Occasionally something different will creep into the mix, like this stock standard Subaru Leone. It's a heck of a story as to why it's on the racecourse, and the driver Simeon is as much of a hard case as the vehicle itself. Plus, when you compare him to the rest of the fire-breathing V8 machines, you can see why he quickly became a star to the rest of the weekend's racing community. He was up against the likes of mainland rally driver Roger Mackay in the V8 Ute and Lofty Harrington, also in a V8 Ute, and you can clearly see the difference in performance between these machines and the Subaru. The thing is, do you remember the story of the hare and the tortoise? It was only halfway through day one and the big monster machine of Gary Baker, whose noisy brakes were the least of his worries, had 2 broken drivetrains to deal with, and that seemed to make him forget about the loud disc squeal. No such problems for Justin Leonard and Scott Nichols, who were throwing their Thunder Truck around with complete ease. The Challenger class units were down in number for this event, only 9 entering the race, but these few simple VW base machines chugged around the track relentlessly, making the many high-performance, more open-class vehicles who were out on the race look a little silly. And while massive high speed is not their thing, the Challenger class makes up for it with effortless manoeuvrability and a fairly decent chance of continual operation. The rigs must maintain 1600cc VW controlled formula of air-cooled engine and standard suspension. However, they don't restrict the frame design or the brakes. And while they continued to chase each other on the final lap of day one, there were dead off-road race cars everywhere. This included the race favourite and initial front-runner Tony McCall, who was out with a seized engine. And that put the experienced Clem Lammers into the lead. After 504 kilometres, Neville Bassilet was only a couple of minutes behind him.
You know, pick your lines, and I short change. I don't use too much power in the rough stuff. I select a higher gear and try and just put less stress on everything. It's getting quite rough. You just got to pick better lines, try and miss the rocks, stay on the road.
So after the first 9 laps, Clem Lammers and Neville Bassilet claimed the 2 top spots. Lindsay Poynton grabbed 3rd, with Stephen Stokes and Scott Nichols taking 4th and 5th.
Precision Automobiles present Alfa Romeo Speed Machine.
You are back with Speed Machine, and we are watching action from the Taupo 1000, presented by Hella. Welcome to day 2 of the Taupo 1000, 500 kilometres still to go. Lots of carnage, lots of attrition, many competitors have already gone home. Clem Lammers, the last champion from 2005, is currently in 1st place, but we're going to go talk to Darren Bell and Gordon Mains. When you started 47th on the grid, you're now in 14th place on day 2. How did the car go yesterday?
Went well, with a few driver errors, but the vehicle held together well. Yeah, loved it though. I think the overriding plan over everything is to finish, you know. That's all really. Keep the vehicle together, drive safe.
I think we've got a lap up on the next guy, so he's got to catch us. So we're using that as a philosophy. He's got to catch us rather than we've got to catch anybody. So we just drive our own race, and if he catches us, so be it.
And the crowd favourite Simeon Gilbert was still around with his great story.
My friend was a car dealer up in Kaikoui, up in Northland. He had this car come in as a trade-in. He then gave it to his son's girlfriend, whose dad then used it as a car just for feeding out the calves on the farm for a couple of years. And then it was given back to him again, and so he decided to give it to me for spare parts. And I decided, oh well, I might as well race it before I strip it for parts. So that's why she's here. But since then, my friend died from a heart attack, so unhappily he can't see it be raced. It's the first time I've ever raced at all, so it's sort of to begin with, it was feel it out and see how she was going, which I tended to push it a little bit just to find out what she'd do, her jumps and stuff. So I rolled her on the second lap because I was just texting my pit crew to say I got a funny noise from the front left. But after that, she's gone good, and on the fifth lap, I knocked my suspension tower straight out through the bonnet. But we've welded it all up overnight, and we're ready to go again.
Oh my God, it's unbelievable. It's different than anything I've experienced back home. The racetrack is really cool. It's fast. It's fairly easy compared to the stuff in the States, terrain-wise. But we're out here having a great time. We thought it'd be cool to be the first ones to race FJ Cruiser down in the Baja race, so we tore it apart, threw a roll cage in it, and went for it. All in all, we got a pretty good race car. Had an unfortunate accident yesterday, someone ramming into us. The race leader hit us and put us down a couple laps. But we worked through the night, got it all back together, and we're ready to go this morning.
Young Ryan Millen was also enjoying his time down under.
The terrain's definitely challenging. Each lap, of course, is changing. So it's a little, I mean, for us, this is smooth compared to Baja. You know, what we're accustomed to back in California and Mexico. This is really smooth, but it's starting to get rougher and rougher and rougher. So it's kind of, you need to cut the course up in sections, and there's certain sections we slow down, and there's certain sections where we're really quick. So this event's so much more of attrition, and it's not a flat-out rally sort of thing. Yesterday we had an issue. I bent an upright. I made a mistake and bent an upright, but we're prepared with that. We're racing a stock vehicle, so you have to use stock components. So we replaced that last night, so we're 110%, ready to go.
Oh, it's been great here. You know, Ryan, this is his program, so, you know, I spent many years with Toyota racing and a lot of off-road events and so on. So it's sort of fun to come down here and watch him sort of take over the reins, you know, certainly from the off-road side of things. I can't help but sort of get involved and, you know, try to use my knowledge and experience to sort of help them, you know, further their career and their activities. So it's really fun to see. They're doing great here. You know, they're in a production FJ Cruiser, but they're running in 6th place at a halfway point. So now I'm very proud.
So with a much depleted field, the competitors set off to complete another 504 kilometres of unforgiving off-road racing. The pace was slower for many, but for the front runners, they had no choice but to keep the momentum going. The battle up front was still between Clem Lammers and Neville Basile, plus the Class 2 Toyota of Ryan Millen, who was closing in fast. Clem immediately set the fastest lap time after repairing his clutch overnight, and his lead extended after Neville rolled the big Jimco. So from the outset of day 2, it was a simple case of waiting it out to see who would last the distance. Matthew Pratt in the Challenger class did wonderful things as he kept the machine going to take out his class honours, coming in 12th overall, an exceptional effort for the VW-powered vehicle. Stephen Green in his Class 5 buggy was also successful enough to take out his principal class, but overall he only completed 8 of the 18 laps, making him 38th overall. Craig Halligan and Bradley Jackson claimed 20th overall spot, but first in Class 4. Darren Bell and Gordon Mains were proving that the TVR Factory V8 powered English beast certainly had a place in the off-roading circles. It was their first off-road race and they came in 9th overall and first in Class 6. Nigel Newland was battling for second place in his Class 2 machine, but was only able to complete 7 of the 8 Day 2 laps. This pushed him back to 3rd in class and 8th overall. Australian David Jameson in the very clean Suzuki was locking horns with Nigel Newlands, but once Nigel stopped, he was left alone to claim 7th overall and 2nd in his class. Meredith was punching hard in his Class 1 buggy, but he finished a lap down on the overall leaders. This still, however, moved him into 6th position outright, and he claimed 3rd placement in his class. Lofty Harrington was also a lap down, but still managed to do enough to take the Class 8 title and cement him into 5th place overall. Ryan Millen had a wonderful performance in the big Toyota FJ, clawing his way lap by lap into a very respectable 4th position overall, becoming one of only 4 vehicles to complete the full race length and obtaining Class 2 outright winner's title. Lindsay Poynton was also pushing hard. He stayed out of trouble, and his smooth driving style meant that he would be fastest on day 2, but his total aggregate time overall gave him the podium position of 3rd and the Class 3 champion title. The battle for 1st and 2nd raged on, and it was a shame that Neville rolled his Jimco on day 2. He was, however, able to fight his way back up the leaderboard with an impressive display of driving, and this gave him 2nd place overall and 2nd place in Class 1. But it was the small green machine of Clem Lammers that was to take the honours. The first time anyone has won the Taupo 1000 back-to-back. His 12 hours and 9 minutes of continuous high-speed driving was good enough to stop any of the other teams from snatching a victory away from him. And in this race, your position is never guaranteed.